Life and Mission in the Amazon. The Amazon region, Amazonia, is a land of exuberant nature and great and rich culture, a land of huge forests, streams, century-old trees, immense rivers, wild animals, and indescribable landscapes. The same Amazonia that contains tremendous mineral and extractive reserves embraces a people unique in its lifestyle and capable of resisting the most difficult situations in a creative and unique way.
Amazonia is one of the biggest and richest ecosystems in the world. It occupies an area of 7 million square kilometers, which correspond to the 5% of the Earth's entire surface, 40% of South America, and almost 60% of Brazil. There you find 20% of the planet's fresh water and 80% of Brazil's fresh water. This region contains 34% of the world reserves of forests and a huge reserve of minerals. Its biological diversity is the richest and most intense in the whole world. About 30% of all the species of fauna and flora are present in Amazonia.
What to say about the longest river in the world, the Amazon? It is more than 6,900 kilometers long, and it pours more than 200,000 cubic meters of water into the Atlantic Ocean every second. That is about 15.5% of all the fresh water spilled into the oceans around the world every day.
Amazonian society is made up of many quite diverse ethnic groups, cultures, and religions. All this diversity, side by side, sometimes generates conflicts and tension in this immense region.
The Brazilian part of Amazonia includes 9 states, comprehending a territory of over 5 million square kilometers, representing 59% of all the national territory and 65% of the total Amazon River basin. It has 11,200 kilometers of international frontiers, 1,500 kilometers of Atlantic coast, and 22,000 kilometers of navigable rivers.
The Amazon region has 23 million inhabitants, among them 173 Indian peoples. More than 370,000 Indians live in Amazonia. That means 50% of the entire Indian population in Brazil. 208,000 Indians live in their villages, and about 61,000 in cities. Along the centuries, these peoples were decimated through cruel persecutions, wars, and illnesses. It is calculated that in the beginning of colonization, there were about 3 million Indians in this region. Nowadays, in all Brazil, there are 240 peoples that speak 180 different languages, but the original native population is reduced to only 750,000 Indians.
Through the years, the Indians had to fight to defend their lands. Many of their leaders were assassinated. Galdino Pataxó, Marçal Guarani, Aldo Macuxi, Chicão Chucuru. We remember the massacre known as Maloca Hashimun in 1993, where 14 Indians were killed. The lands traditionally occupied by the Indians were recognized officially by the federal Constitution only in 1988, recognizing their exclusive right to occupy and utilize these lands and all their natural resources. Traditionally, the Indian peoples have developed many forms of respecting the earth, water, forest, and all the forms of life present in nature. No one is considered owner of land or any part of nature. Rather, they interact with nature in a communitarian lifestyle. Indians have a very deep religious vision of life that makes them respect and care for everything related to life. The Catholic Church's Indian Mission Council, CIMI, brought attention to the Indians' issues. By promoting assemblies of Indian leaders, CIMI helped indigenous peoples become protagonists of their own organizations.
Afro-descendants form another important group present in the composition of Amazonian peoples. Many are known as quilombolas, from the name given to settlements of runaway slaves. These began to appear with the first rebellions and flourished with the abolition of slavery. Today, there are about 30,000 quilombola communities in the Amazonia region. From their origins, they formed small, productive agricultural communities who were capable of combining local conditions with the techniques they already knew from their original culture. As the years passed, they incorporated Christian and Indian elements into their still basically African culture.
During the rubber boom, Amazonia was totally occupied by the rubber tappers and by immigrants from Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. Manaus and Belém are the cities that most benefited by the economic movement and exportation of latex. Recent studies affirm that from those 60,000 men called the Rubber Army that immigrated to this region, half disappeared in the Amazonian forest. It was during this same period that, many times against the law and helped by the omission of authorities, some men appropriated large extensions of land.
The rubber tappers played an important role in the organization and resistance of this traditional population. They reacted to the land grabbing and speculation with various means, such as dialogue or confiscating the chainsaws to prevent deforestation. Their actions provoked violence, which eventually led to the assassination of some important leaders like Wilson Pinheiro and Chico Mendes, respectively former presidents of the Brasileia and Chapuri Rural Workers Unions in the state of Acre. Together with his people, Chico Mendes elaborated a project to unify the preservation of the forest and improve the rubber tappers' quality of life, education, health, and welfare. The National Council of Rubber Tappers was created to implement these plans. The leader always said that while Indians and rubber tappers were present in the forest, there would be hope of saving it.
As a result of the mixture between the different Indian groups, the Quilombolas and the immigrants from northeastern Brazil, a new social group was born, the Caboclo. Because of his capacity and creativity, the Caboclo is a very important element in the cultural expansion in Amazonia. Indians and Caboclos normally live in harmony by the rivers and streams, practicing a basic agriculture of mandioca, which is cassava or yuca. They also plant rice, corn, and beans. They live from hunting, fishing, and gathering Brazil nuts and forest fruits, and tapping rubber. Even with a precarious and simple lifestyle, these people live free, using nature wisely.
These communities have a deep religious vision of the world. The water, rivers, lakes, fish, and community life were assumed as an important part of their lives. The organization of the river folks in Amazonia began with a group trying to defend their rights, water, and the Amazonia ecosystem and waterways. For the traditional peoples of Amazonia, land is a present from God, given to all those who want to live on it and work. According to them, what gives someone the right to live there is cultivating the land or gathering forest products. They live in family groups with their house, access to water, and a plot for planting. There are the areas of common use, such as forests, rivers, and lakes. House, yard, and garden, however.
Indians, river folks, rubber tappers, miners, quilombolas, and other farmers were violently driven from the areas where they had lived and cultivated for a very long time. This was caused by the increase of cattle raising. The situation became so critical that the Catholic Church in Brazil, especially in Amazonia, created the CPT, Pastoral Land Commission, to seek articulate pastoral actions, promote knowledge of laws and the new social and economic situation, so as to defend the people's rights. Base Christian communities were also born, called SEBIs. These were extremely important in forming a critical awareness in the people through the knowledge of their reality, gospel spirituality, the lay people's protagonism, and forming popular leaders. Land conflicts have caused a lot of pain, violence, destruction, and death. Between 1985 and 2005, just in Amazonia, 933 persons were killed in land conflicts, always without any kind of punishment for those responsible. Between 2003 and 2005, just in Amazonia, 31,371 families were driven from their land by judicial order.
Some documents written by the Amazonia's Episcopate denounce the violation of basic human rights, such as owning the land, and also identified major problems generated by the new model of development in the region. New settlers coming in from diverse places had difficulty integrating themselves in local communities. There were poor people without land or driven from their lands to favor new projects of agro-business and cattle raising in different regions.
Indiscriminate deforestation and depredation in Amazonia are not caused mainly by the local farmers, but rather by the big companies that exploit the wood for lumber and the minerals for exportation, that promote the large-scale cattle raising also for export. And there are those who come to Amazonia motivated by the huge fiscal incentives and the enormous financial support offered by the government, which they often collect with no production whatsoever. More recently, soy and grain producers have increased the deforestation of the region with a view to exportation, and sugarcane planters in a view of ethanol production. 70 million acres of forest have already been cut in Amazonia, more than 22 million just in the last 10 years.
Between 1950 and 2005, population in the Amazon region increased 518%, well above the national average of 255%. Urbanization increased 18%, and 70% of the total Amazonian population already lives in the cities. Towns along the riverbanks are characteristic of Amazonia. Life in these cities is related to the river and the forest. Everything is centralized in the port, where all things are passing by. Nobody stays, and nothing remains. Everything is temporary, unfinished, and damaged. The port is where everyone arrives and leaves. It is the intermediate zone between rivers, forests, and cities, the border between reality and fiction.
Fishing is a very important activity in the region, which produces almost 200,000 tons of fish every year, 20% of the national average. From the 155,000 jobs generated by this activity, 72% are from subsistence fishing, 23% from commercial fishing, and only 3% from industrial fishing. The rich Amazonian biodiversity is sought by industries, laboratories, and research centers, which don't hesitate to resort to biological piracy to acquire this wealth. The genetic materials stolen in recent times come to almost 20,000 samples of different species every year.
A new model of development in Amazonia is appearing. A sustainable management of different products, those that come from wood of the forest and those that don't. Environmental and social concerns have become a key element for creating a consensus before approving the implementation of new projects with major impact on the environment. The poor quality of life of the Amazonian dwellers is evident, and it shows the carelessness with which public services are treated, leaving the people abandoned. Obviously, a deepening social crisis is anticipated in this century. It is clearly untrue that the regulation of capitalist marketing is the only way to develop Amazonia.
There are already popular initiatives orientated to another kind of society. Their vision is based on a new way of understanding and valorizing people, their work, and popular economy. It is based on mutual and collective support, where solidarity is present among the people who work together, using the forces of nature and in respectful harmony with her. All these associations have a very acute awareness of the environment and are against devastation and deforestation. To defend and preserve natural resources, identifying with them is a political act that establishes new ways of solidarity. The Amazonian forest, standing, offers almost unlimited possibilities for profit. With its fruits, many types of nuts, including Brazil nuts, numerous palm nuts and fruits, rich in nutrition, and useful for cosmetic purposes.
The creativity and strength of the popular organizations make their struggle efficient, generating many initiatives in different areas of the Amazonian peoples. Examples are numerous: preservation of rivers, gathering from the forest, the agroecological system, handcraft, and many others. The combined wisdom of Indians, caboclos, rubber tappers, and river folks shows an excellent way to develop relationship with the forest and life conditions in Amazonia that is economically sound and at the same time respectful. Because of these challenges presented by today's reality, and also as a product of a deep and broad vision of Amazonia, the Catholic Church in Brazil shows signs of vitality and deep communion with the people in Amazonia.
The 2007 Lenten Fraternity Campaign was an opportunity for Brazil to learn more about the Amazonian peoples and reality. That knowledge is essential to comprehend the historical and symbolic meaning of Amazonia, its human diversity, and the cultures present in its territory, as well as the traditions, myths, life experiences, organization, feasts, religiosity, and challenges. This comprehension will help overcome the common stereotypes of the region and its inhabitants. The Catholic Church in Brazil, especially in Amazonia, is called to once again, fearlessly and courageously, become a living sign of the reign of God in Amazonia. For the Catholic Church in Amazonia, hope is not based only on historic reality, but also on God's promise and the signs of the future that accompany His word, the word He sent us to proclaim.
For Christians in Amazonia, to evangelize means to discover and recognize value of all signs of life present in the original cultures of the people that inhabit this region. It means to manifest everything that is a source and guarantee of life, and also to denounce, combat, and repudiate everything that is against the reign of God or that generates death and destruction. The Catholic Church in Brazil wants to manifest its solidarity and fraternity with Amazonia through concrete actions and a national movement with sustainable economic, political, and social projects that consider the rich potential of this ecosystem already present in the cultures and in the popular initiatives of viable economy and democratic practices.
Amazonia is an immense territory where many peoples live in social and cultural diversity, where many and different forms of life remain intact. This rich diversity, with many social and biological differences, implores us as society and humanity to defend it against all forms of devastation, so as not to succumb to the interests of a few persons or groups greedy for profits, with no care for the survival of humanity. Amazonia is an equilibrium factor essential for our planet, and its life is related to global quality of life.
Finally, everyone committed to life on Earth is invited to change, living in solidarity, a new lifestyle, and a human project of development based on human and evangelical values, following Jesus' way, caring about human life, particularly the poorest and the whole of nature.
May Amazonia, warm cradle of many forms of life, also be the land of fraternal sharing, viable country of many peoples and cultures, home of brothers and sisters.